Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Talks on between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer at Chequers. New US investments into the UK and global affairs on agenda. Protesters rally against austerity across France. Unions angry with planned budget cuts. Macron's government under pressure to fix the ailing public finances. India and the UAE review their comprehensive economic partnership agreement, also exploring ties in space and maritime sector. Nvidia bets big on Intel with $5 billion stake and chip partnership. Shares of both the chip giants surge in pre-market trading. US President Donald Trump and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer held bilateral talks at the Chequers country residence in Buckinghamshire on Thursday. Still photographs showed that the two leaders were sitting down and walking through a library room during the second day of Trump's state visit to Britain. Earlier, Trump waved to the media after his Marine One helicopter landed at the estate near London, before boarding a black SUV with the US and UK flags for a short ride to the main building. He was welcomed by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and his wife Victoria Starmer at their residence. US-UK trade, Ukraine and Gaza crisis are expected to feature prominently in the talks. Following Wednesday's events of pomp and ceremony, US President Donald Trump bid farewell to Britain's King Charles at the Windsor Castle. Trump shook hands with King Charles before leaving the castle grounds. Trump called him a great gentleman and a great king. US President Donald Trump on Wednesday had hailed his second state visit to the UK as the highest honor accorded to him. So the British government announced a record-breaking $204.87 billion package of US investments into the UK during Trump's ongoing state visit. The government said that the US companies had pledged a record-breaking sum as part of Donald Trump's state visit. This figure, which Britain said was the largest commercial investment package generated by any state visit, was announced ahead of Trump's meeting with Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The ministers claim that the package will create more than 7,600 high-quality jobs, revitalize communities and accelerate growth in sectors of the future. The total includes a previously reported £100 billion long-term investment pledge from private equity firm Blackstone and a £3.9 billion from Prologis in life sciences and advanced manufacturing. Also, US First Lady Melania Trump and Queen Consort Camilla visited the Royal Library at the Windsor Castle earlier during US President Donald Trump's official visit to the United Kingdom. US President Donald Trump celebrated Walt Disney-owned ABC's decision to pull Jimmy Kimmel Live off the air on Wednesday. This came after remarks by the show's late-night host about Charlie Kirk's assassination sparked harsh criticism by the head of the Federal Communications Commission. On Truth Social, Trump said, "Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done." The decision comes as Republican President Donald Trump has repeatedly pressured broadcasters to stop airing content he has found objectionable and called on the FCC to pull licenses from stations. Though the decision has also drawn sharp criticism from politicians and TV hosts alike, a number of Democratic lawmakers assailed the decision, saying that free speech was under attack. Meanwhile, fans gathered outside the El Capitan Entertainment Center on Wednesday, protesting against the ABC move. Still with the US, the Federal Reserve, goaded by the risk of rising unemployment, reduced interest rates on Wednesday for the first time since December and indicated more cuts would follow to halt any slide in a labour market already experiencing higher joblessness, a declining work week and other signs of weakness. Fed Chair Jerome Powell, speaking in a press conference after the US Central Bank lowered its benchmark interest rate by 0.25 percentage point to the 4 to 4.25% range, indicating more cuts could follow at meetings in October and December, said that the softening job market was now top of the mind for him and his fellow policymakers. Powell's comments cap a steady shift in tone that began over the summer as Fed officials concluded that the higher import tariffs imposed by the Trump administration would not lead to persistent inflation, with faster price increases expected through the end of the year. But price pressure is also expected to fade after that time, even as monetary policy becomes looser. So London stocks advanced on Thursday in line with a broader move across Europe after the US Federal Reserve cut interest rates for the first time this year, with focus now on the Bank of England's rate verdict later in the day. The blue chip FTSE 100 gained 0.4%, with gains in business information group Relics Rail and aircraft engine maker Rolls-Royce among the top boosts. UK's mid-cap index FTMC also climbed 0.3%. Bourses across Europe advanced after the Fed reduced interest rates. Nvidia and Intel announced a blockbuster deal on Thursday to co-develop PC and data center chips. Simultaneously, Nvidia said that it would take a $5 billion stake in Intel. The pact poses a potential risk to Taiwan's TSMC, which currently manufactures Nvidia's flagship processors, business that the world's most valuable company could one day extend to Intel. Nvidia shares rose 2.2% in pre-market trading. Intel soared 32%, while US-listed shares of TSMC slid 2%. If Intel shares open at that level, it would be the highest in over a year. Nvidia, whose must-have chips are powering a global artificial intelligence boom, said in a statement that it will pay $23.28 per share for Intel common stock. Nvidia will become one of the Intel's largest shareholders, likely owning 4% or more of the company's shares after new shares are issued to complete the deal. For years, the European Union saw itself as a global economic powerhouse on par with the United States and China, but economic realities are very different. The past few years have brought little growth and growing concerns. Now, a new report is out looking at the current situation on the continent. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin on the story. Lars, what can you tell us about this new report?
Thanks for having me. Well, first and foremost, that it's a very, very alarming report. Let me just quote a short paragraph. Europe's standing today is worse than a year ago. Our basis for economic growth is deteriorating. Also, let me quickly tell you who's behind that report. It's Mario Draghi, the former president of the European Central Bank, a very highly regarded economist who is currently serving as an economic advisor to EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Last year, he already published a similar report full of warnings and alarm bells. But like I said, this year's report cranks it up a notch. Draghi says the industrial basis in Europe is eroding. There's a dire lack of investment. And now that must hurt some people. He says that the European governments have apparently not understood the severity of the situation. His report is a desperate call for governments to act fast and decisively to ensure that Europe will not be entirely left behind in the global economic race.
Okay, Alas, getting into the details, where do Europe's problems stem from? Are these outside influences or is this a homemade crisis?
It's both, tragically. Let's start maybe with the bigger picture. Obviously, when we're talking about a global economic race, we're talking about competition with the US and China. And looking at the US first, we all know how the situation in terms of trade has deteriorated there. We had Trump's tariff threats, actually not just threats, but also tariffs. And then we had a trade agreement where the EU basically capitulated to Trump and accepted everything he asked for, with Mario Draghi now saying that the EU has completely failed to protect its own markets. He also says that the idea that we could replace parts of the US business with other markets is an illusion, and here China is coming into play. That is because China is also having trouble with the US, and they're rerouting much of their industrial output either to the EU or to other countries where EU firms now have a lot more competition. The only recent upside in trade, says Draghi, was the Mercosur trade agreement with the Southern American economies, but that won't make up what the EU is losing in other markets right now.
So what about the self-made problems then, Lars?
They probably could, but it won't be easy. Let's look at the main point Mr. Draghi is pointing out. He says the EU banning combustion engine cars is a mistake. Now, we just talked about that topic here a few days ago, and the EU is set to ban gas and diesel-driven cars by 2035. There's a lot of reasons for why they're doing that, but Draghi says we won't be ready with our e-mobility infrastructure by then, and that the continent is shooting itself in the foot. He also says that the EU has to urgently give up its reservations over artificial intelligence. The continent is far behind when it comes to developing this crucial technology. Looking at foundation models, that's AI training systems, the US has developed 40 last year, China has developed 15, and Europe came out with 3. Companies are also not implementing AI fast enough, says Draghi, and this will also put us further behind. He's also talking about how high energy prices have to come down fast and how the EU has to speed up investment. Last year in his report, he recommended investment of 800 billion euros per year. Now in this latest report, Draghi insists that Europe, businesses and governments have to invest more like 1.2 trillion euros per annum to not fall further behind. And that's a lot of money. And the whole report, I would just say, if this isn't a wake-up call for the EU and all member states, then it's hard to fathom what else could lead to quite drastic reforms here.
Okay, thank you very much, Lars, for all that analysis there. Still with Europe, French protesters staging a day of nationwide disruption on Thursday in a show of anger over President Emmanuel Macron's budget policies, with mass protests expected, transport chaos and clashes between police and demonstrators. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu, Macron's 7th head of government, took office last week, vowing a break from the past against the background of an ongoing political crisis. But the appointment of the former defense minister has failed to assuage the anger of unions and the left. They remain incensed about the draft €44 billion cost-saving budget of his predecessor, François Bayrou, despite Lecornu's pledges to abolish both the lifelong privileges of prime ministers and a widely detested plan to scrap 2 public holidays. You're watching DD India Live, still to come on this show. India's logistics costs comes down to 10% from 16% thanks to the rapid expansion of road infrastructure, says Highways Minister Nitin Gadkari. A special publication marking the 75th birthday of Prime Minister Modi launched at the House of Commons on Wednesday. And a hidden Picasso painting tucked away for over 80 years is all set for auction in Paris.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India Live. I am Tanvi Taneja. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal co-chaired the 13th meeting of the UAE-India High-Level Joint Task Force on Investments alongside Managing Director of Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, Sheikh Hamid bin Zayed Al Nahyan in Dubai on Thursday. The meeting reviewed the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, the Double Taxation Treaty and Central Bank Cooperation while exploring new investments in space, maritime and other high-potential sectors. India and the UAE signed a Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement in May 2022. It nearly doubled bilateral merchandise trade from $43.3 billion in financial year 2021 to $83.7 billion in financial year 2024. Union Minister for Road Transport and Highways Nitin Gadkari, while addressing the Indian Chamber of Commerce Global Business Summit 2025, virtually said that India's logistics cost has come down to 10% from the earlier 16% owing to the rapid expansion of road infrastructure.
Previously, our logistic cost was 16% and a European country it was 12% and China the logistic cost was 9%. But today, it is a great pleasure and pride for me that the IIM Bangalore, IIT Chennai and IIT Kanpur, in their research indicates that because of good roads, Indian logistic cost is reduced by 6%. It comes to 10% now.
The Indian minister underlined that the government has focused on two key priorities, building world-class roads and transforming the country's fuel mix, pointing out that 85% of India's fuel requirement is imported. He said alternative energy sources such as hydrogen, ethanol, LNG and methanol are being actively developed.
We are taking two decisions. Out of one is to make good roads. At the same time, we are constantly in change of fuels. The 85% of our energy requirement is depending upon our imports. So today, India is doing excellent job, particularly in development of indigenous fuel, particularly alternative fuel and biofuel. We are working on ethanol, methanol, biodiesel, LNG, electrics, and at the same time, we are also working on hydrogen.
The pace at which the border infrastructure is being built along the northern and western borders of India is unprecedented. Our correspondent Nandita Dagar spoke to the DG of Border Roads Organization about the upcoming big projects, one of which will provide a third access to Leh, Ladakh. Listen in.
The Border Roads Organization has already completed 65 years last year of its raising, and this is the silent service because it is connecting the vital arteries of our country to our borders, with the northern borders with China, with the western borders with Pakistan, and therefore they give a strategic reach to our forces, arms, ammunition, logistics, everything can reach our borders, be rapidly deployed. We are speaking to Lieutenant General Raghu Srinivasan, who is the Director General of Border Roads Organization. Thank you so much, General Raghu, for speaking to us.
The government has given a surge to border infrastructure, and this is unparalleled to what we have seen in the past. So in the last 7 to 10 years, there has been an impetus given to border infrastructure, and it's not about the population, it is about developing border infrastructure serving two purposes. One is the strategic mobility of the defense forces to get there in time and to be able to deploy and remain there and to be able to sustain there. A very important part of this is to develop the economic artery and to meet the economic aspirations of the border people. The government has already said that our border villages are not the last villages, they are the Pratham Gaon, they are the first villages.
So the upcoming big projects of the Border Roads Organization that you mentioned and the Nimu Padam Darcha axis that you were talking about.
So what I would like to say is that there's been a tremendous surge and government impetus which has been given to border infrastructure, and this is unparalleled in anything that we have seen, and this has happened over the last 10 years or so. Connectivity to Leh has been through Srinagar, or it has been through the Manali axis. Now, the third connectivity was established by the border roads last year. This is over the Zanskar range. This is called the Nimu Padam Darcha road, where the connectivity has already been established. As we understand, civil traffic is already moving on that road. We are widening it to double lane specifications. And last year in August, the Honorable Prime Minister had done the first blast for the Shinkunla tunnel, which will be an all-weather tunnel on this road. So this means that we will have all-weather third connectivity to Leh. In addition, through Himachal Pradesh, we're looking at going through the area of Nurbo, Kaza, Sumdo, Gramfu, which has one tunnel at Taklingla, which will again give us the fourth axial to Leh. So where we were, struggling with one, that is Srinagar, now we have two, and we are looking at the third and the fourth. This is the kind of surge that we are seeing.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Nepal's newly appointed Prime Minister Sushila Karki held a telephonic conversation today. During the talks, Prime Minister Karki extended birthday wishes to Prime Minister Modi on the occasion of his 75th birthday. She also recalled the centuries-old friendly relations between Nepal and India and briefed the Prime Minister on the latest political developments in Nepal. In response, Prime Minister Modi congratulated Prime Minister Karki on her appointment to the post of Prime Minister of Nepal and pledged the continued support of India to Nepal as a good neighbour in the days to come. Prime Minister Modi conveyed heartfelt condolences on the recent tragic loss of lives in Nepal. During the conversation between the heads of governments of two close neighbours, matters relating to Nepal-India relations, issues of bilateral interest and mutual concerns were discussed. PM Modi also extended warm greetings to Nepal and its people on their National Day tomorrow. In the Asia Cup on Thursday, Afghanistan and Sri Lanka square off in a must-win Pool B encounter in Abu Dhabi. Afghanistan have to win in order to make the Super 4, or else Bangladesh get in ahead of them. Sri Lanka merely has to avoid losing by a huge margin. S. Atal and Azmatullah Omarzai were the only big contributors in Afghanistan's big win over Hong Kong. Afghanistan need more players to stand up in that middle order. On the other hand, Sri Lankan bowlers have largely kept the opposition's runs down, and with the bat they have looked good so far. If Sri Lanka loses, the Super 4's qualification will then depend upon the net run rate. Updates from the ongoing Champions League. Liverpool captain VV Jake headed a last gasp goal in stoppage time to the team to a thrilling 3-2 victory over Atletico Madrid in the opening game. Apart from the skipper, Mohamed Salah and Andrew Robertson also contributed with 1 goal each. Meanwhile, Harry Kane's brace guided German champions Bayern Munich to a 3-1 victory over Chelsea in their league opener. Bayern started their Champions League season with a win for the 22nd consecutive time and continued their unbeaten run across all competitions, while Chelsea tasted defeat for the first time this season. Paris Saint-Germain kicked off their campaign with an impressive 4-0 win over Atlanta. PSG coach Luis Enrique said it was a deserved victory as the team played well. The League One champions next face Barcelona on October 1st, and Atlanta will host Club Brugge on the previous day. Reigning champion Neeraj Chopra failed to defend his javelin throw title after being eliminated after 4 throws in the World Athletics Championship in Tokyo. The 27-year-old managed a best effort of 84.03 meters that left him 8th in the overall standings after the 4th throw and fouled the 5th to exit the competition. Only the top 6 athletes will compete in the 6th and the final round. Sachin Yadav of India finished 4th with a personal best of 86.27 meters at the World Championship. So hopes for an Indian medal still alive with Sachin Yadav there. Let's now take a look at other stories making news across the world. A special publication marking the 75th birthday of Prime Minister Narendra Modi was launched at the UK House of Commons on Wednesday. British Conservative MP Bob Blackman also attended the event. Blackman praised PM Modi as a remarkable leader. A hidden Picasso painting, bust of a woman with a flowered hat that has been tucked away for over 80 years, is all set for auction in Paris. It was acquired by a French family in 1944 and has been preserved since then, untouched, unseen until now. Though it is expected to fetch millions, but its true value lies in the history it holds. So that's all for this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates from India and the world. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.